Hi, my name's Jamel Kaur Singh. I'm a buyer's agent. I've been in real estate and finance for about 30 years. And this episode is about encouraging you to live within your means, but look beyond your current thought patterns and enlighten yourself to more education and financial literacy.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga. And today, we have a guest whose journey is as inspiring as it is instructive. Now, Jamel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing absolutely fantastically. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, the pleasure is all mine because I think we're going to be learning a whole lot about investments, about what to buy, what not to buy, who to buy from, and everything else along those lines. But before I get too excited about all of this, I just want to welcome you, the guest who's decided to show up on the Online Prosperity Show, because our guest today has navigated the complex world of real estate with also an understanding of the market intricacies, and also resonates with the emotional highs and lows of being a property investor. Okay, so many people, when they get started in this journey of property, they get intimidated. They don't quite know where to start or who to go to and things of that nature. And there's always that Auntie Sally who sits at the corner of a table who seems to know a thing or two about property, yet she lives in a granny flat, on somebody else's property, meaning she hasn't been quite successful with her own decisions. So our guest today here is going to help us navigate that part. If not on this podcast, you could always connect with her after that. So Jamel is the founder of Focus Buyers Australia, a company that's dedicated to assisting clients in making informed and confident property decisions. Now, she's got a background that seamlessly blends finance and real estate, and she's actually carved a niche in helping individuals and families find their dream homes and investment properties. But obviously, beyond these professional accolades lies a story of perseverance, adaptability, and a deep commitment to client success, which we are going to be exploring today. Now, Jamel, I could go on and on talking about things I'm not even qualified to talk about. Tell us a little bit about your journey into real estate and what it is that you're now doing to help your clients these days.
Well, I have a very eclectic past. I was born in England. I came to Australia when I was 4 years old. We grew up and did our education in Adelaide. I have two younger sisters, and when I was doing my year 11, you have your schoolies where you go and do your work experience in some place. So I had an extra couple of weeks to do it, and Dad was good friends with one of the real estate agents in Blackwood, and he said, "Oh, Jimmy, go do it there." And I had not really thought about real estate ever as a career choice before that, but I went and did my 2 weeks work experience with Peter Alexander in Blackwood, and that was it. I was sold. I loved everything about real estate. I loved the auction. I love the selling. I love the buying. I love the helping buyers and vendors and the emotion driven. But I also really loved, the BMW that I was driving around in for the 2 weeks, and the class that came with that industry, especially up in the hills in Adelaide. And so it was always something that piqued my interest. One day I'll do that. When I finished my year 12, though, I ended up doing a degree in Aboriginal Administration Management while I was in the Army Reserves. And I also worked in hospitality. And then I went to Japan and taught English for 6 months. And life, gets in the way. But then I ended up in Melbourne. And that's when I started my real estate career. So that was back in 1997, 98. And I did my agents rep course and I started at Malcolm's in real estate. And I was really lucky because I had Frank Hellier, who was at the time the president of the REIV. He was my mentor, my boss, and he took me under his wing and made me his little prodigy. And what I found in real estate was I did really well in real estate, especially as one of the very few females in sales. Females in real estate generally 30 years ago were always in property management or in administration, but not in the sales. But I did really well in sales because I understood the cultural context that people came to. You know, at the end of the day, to be able to help from cultural needs perspective. You know, you walk into a house that looks like the Vogue magazine, you talk about what's in the financial review that day. If you walk into a house and there's toys everywhere, you make sure you're talking about kids and the school and all of the things that go along with that. You walk into a Polish house, you take a bottle of vodka with you. Understanding those cultural connotations helped me gain very quickly within the industry, whether it was selling or buying. Um, but I became a mum of two under, well, they're 18 months apart. So they were very close together in age, and you can't do real estate as a mum. And that kind of then branched me. And by that time, I'd already done my full license, but that branched me into finance. And so John Sivak and I started FinPlus, and I did finance broking for many years. When John passed away, my finance broking company was still running, but I used to then teach real estate and finance at RMIT in Holmesglen and created the methodology around it. I came and went from finance broking. I was on the council for the Finance Brokers Association of Australia, but always had my hand in real estate. I was always helping my clients that I was doing their finance for buy properties because that's what I'm passionate about. And that's where we get to today. VinPlus still runs, so I've still got the finance broking leg of my company, and then my son, he's 22 now, and he already has 3 properties, and he loves real estate. He always has. He's a little bit neurodiverse, and real estate is something that he can really sink his teeth into. He can find properties. He has a tendency when he's looking for properties, not just to look at a suburb, not just to look at what's written on domain and stuff, but he'll actually look at government budgeting and infrastructure bills and things like that to find out what the plans are for this suburb in the next 10 years, 15 years time, what the proposals are, what's in place already. So which means when you're going into real estate, an area might have a 90% occupancy rate for their rentals and things like that. But what sort of tenants are you getting in those sorts of areas? And that's not necessarily just dependent on the price of point. It areas and they evolve, don't get me wrong, they definitely evolve. But you can buy property that is for you to live in. You can buy an investment property that is something that is going to grow quickly in value or over time in value, or you can buy properties that are more positively geared. So everybody's circumstances of what they need in real estate is very different. If you're a young family that has young kids, you're looking at primary schools, childcare centres, you're looking at the shopping centres, you're looking at the access to public transport. But then if the kids are later on in life, you're looking at what high schools, what zones they are. But then also what's the public transport to get them in and out to the different colleges and universities and things like that. There is a lot to look at when you're looking at real estate, and there is no one thing fits all. A lot of people that they're going into their first home, they can't buy the 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house that they want to live in forever because they're just financially not in that means. So therefore, buy something that you could potentially, especially when I get really young buyers, I'll say to them, buy something that potentially you could see yourself retiring into in 40 years' time, 30 years' time. It might just be a small two-bedroom that doesn't have too many stairs and things that you could, because if you hold on to that for that 30, 40 years, not only has it paid itself and kept its mortgage paying itself, it's also going to bring one positive cash flow, but it's paid off. You can then, in 30 years' time, renovate the whole thing and make it beautiful. And that's the perfect thing for you to retire into. But for people to think that far in advance is not always easy. You can't think what you're going to do in a year's time, let alone in 40 years' time. But if you can have that kind of approach, the other thing with real estate is you have to take a lot of the emotion out of it. Buying real estate is a very facts and figures decision, because at the end of the day, if it's not, it ends up becoming a liability, not an asset. And at the end of the day, your real estate should be an asset, not a liability. So I think that those sorts of things need to be considered. If you are later on in life, the properties that you want to buy, okay, they don't have that time to grow in value. Keeping in mind, in Melbourne, for example, properties generally double in value every 10 years. That's been what's happening for the last 100 odd years. And those go up and up and up, right? But there I also have those downs, and people freak out when they're on their downs. Spending
Mhm.
money on investment properties, for example, the plumbing goes, the something happens with it. It doesn't really matter if you've got a good income and you can tax write off against it. The other thing that's happened here in Victoria is that the State Revenue Office have very high tax levels. As soon as you've got one, two, three properties, it accumulates in how much tax you're paying on them. So that's where you need to make sure you have a really good accountant and do a bit more creative accounting where you buy properties under trusts or self-managed super funds and things like that. There's different ways and means, and depending on what your journey is and where you're at in life, those are the things that need to be taken into consideration. And with my financial background, if you've got a couple and say they're on, 150, $200,000 between the two of them, the bank might say you can borrow 600,000, 700, 800,000, whatever the case is, right? That doesn't necessarily mean you should spend that much money. And I think that's the difference. It's about looking at the holistic approach. Are they going to have kids? Are they going to go down to one income? Are they going to be off work for 6 months? Are they going to put themselves under financial stress if they plan on having kids in the next 6 months, 6 years? Those are things that a bank serviceability calculator don't take into consideration. And I think having the real conversations is really important. And at the end of the day, whether you're a buyer's agent, because now you just do a quick course and you become a buyer's agent, it's not rocket science. But you can also do very little and become a mortgage broker. A mortgage broker is going to want you to spend as much as they can because that's how much commission. A buyer's agent, they're going to want to spend the maximum that they possibly can get you to spend because they're going to get commissions accordingly. I'm at a different place in life. I don't need 100 clients. I don't need it. I don't advertise for clients at all. Even my website, it's pretty terrible. But that's because it's not something I really use. I just use the referrals. For me, the only clients I take on are clients that have come to me from somebody else that have said, use Jamel. I've helped so many single moms, widowers, single dads, people that have lost it all in bankruptcies, people that have starting from afresh, but also people that are in their 50s, 60s that have been in the rat race their whole life that have never got out of it. I have various advice for various people in their lives and their stages because I've seen it all after 30 years in this industry. There's nothing someone can tell me that I haven't seen, heard, or experienced myself in this industry. And so I guess that's where that experience comes in. And I'm just here to help people make those choices. I have people I have a client at the moment, and he's actually a doctor. And he says to me, "Oh, Jamel, I'm looking for a property, all the way up to Mount Martha, somewhere on the coastline, one bedroom or two bedroom. The idea is for me to rent it out for the next 5, 10 years, and then I want to move into it, and that's where I want to retire." And I said to him, okay, that's great. What's your budget? Gave all of that sort of stuff. But then the unrealistic expectations. Yeah. Don't want something that's more than 10 years old. Don't want this, don't want that. Don't want a shared area. Don't want shared entrance space. Make sure the body corporates are not too high. And it's like, well, you're not going to get that for $600,000, mate. Let's be realistic.
Mm.
Um, and I think that's where expectations become really hard. Like I'd love to take you around my house. It's a bit of a mess at the moment. I haven't done any cleaning. But when I bought this house, it was pink. It had walls everywhere. It had 7 different floor coverings. The kitchen was terrible. It was old and grotty. The bathrooms, there was a door, and right at the end of that area there was a toilet, and then there was another door, and at the end of that there was a pink bathtub and a pink vanity, and then there was another door that had a shower at the end. um I bought this, cut it down to its skeleton, and then redid it, and I did that all within $150,000. I bought it for 400. I was about 370. I bought it for just before COVID, and then did the renovations on it. But the second I'd done my renovations on it, one, I got the house that I wanted with the huge kitchen with lots of bench spaces because I love cooking. I had the open plan. It's perfect for me and the kids. So it's now 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom instead of kind of 3 bathrooms, but not quite. um, it works perfectly for me. And I also managed to then renovate the second section, and through the laundry, Dad calls it the immigration office, and through there's another kitchen and a lounge room and 2 bedrooms and a bathroom for Mum and Dad as well, because that's what I needed for me in my circumstances. But if anybody else had seen this, sorry, if anybody else had seen, it's the only phone call that can actually come through when I'm on is my son because of, because of all his illnesses. Well, that's okay. But if anybody else had seen this house, they would have been like, oh my God, even my builder, he was absolutely petrified when he came through. He's like, Jamil, are you kidding? What are you doing? I'm like, no, 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 we can do this and we can do that. And if we do this and we can do that. And sure enough, it's ended up this beautiful house. But a lot of people go in with that emotional state. Somebody's going to save $100,000 because the bathroom's not renovated without realizing it's only going to cost you $10,000 to put in a really lovely bathroom. Why would you spend an extra $100,000 to get the perfect bathroom when you can save that money, get a bigger block sometimes, and then spend that money on uh,
Mm.
a new bathroom?
Uh, uh,
People hear so much about the building industry, this is bad, that is bad, all that sort of thing, that they forget to look at the bigger picture.
Absolutely. Now, thank you so much for taking us through all of that, and I quite like this whole transformation that you've done, especially to your house, because one, you got to know what you're looking for when you go into properties like that, and also two, have realistic expectations, and three, know the actual value of what you're stepping into, because so many of us maybe just get transfixed on not the actual structure of the house but the furniture in there and
I
think,
know
wait a minute.
people are spending so much money on staging their property, which drives me nuts. You're spending 4,000 odd dollars to stage a property because unfortunately people just see that cosmetic.
Yeah, yes.
They don't see the structure and the bones of a property. They're so emotionally driven. And when you're buying real estate, you cannot be emotionally driven. If somebody has spent $4,000 to make a place look pretty, that means that without any furniture in it, it's not going to look so pretty. And they want to have that magazine house the second they buy it, as opposed to put in some hard work. It is not hard to paint. I mean, I even changed the tiles in my own house in my previous place. It's it's really easy, and Bunnings makes those things so easy. Cosmetic things like your blinds and all that sort of stuff, they're so easy to do. And
Mm,
people go in with such high expectations and they want everything for X amount of dollars rather than saying, hey, we could actually spend less buy this and then make it our own. So then the bench tops and the floorboards and all that sort of stuff is what you actually want. And
Absolutely. I
we
think
we
it's
have a big part of life where everything needs to be now, you know.
instant gratification. Yeah. I think it's because so many people only have one shot at entering the property ladder, and for them it, because people like yourself would have many transactions that you have done, so you've seen houses, you've seen them before, after, and pretty much when it's all done, and it's like you said, a numbers game. Whereas for so many people, they probably didn't grow up in a house their family bought. They probably were not exposed to that ownership mentality, which basically reduces people to, like a deer in front of headlights as soon as a property is presented to them, because everything is at stake. But let's just go back a little bit, because you introduced us to this 4-year-old that just comes in from England, and all of a sudden the world is yours, which was
Yeah.
quite intriguing. What was yeah.
Before you go there, I'm going to quickly introduce you to my son because he is actually my business partner, and he's an amazing person with real estate. Suffer, we're actually on a live podcast, and it's all about real estate and buyers agency and what we do. So this this is Suffer, my son. So if anybody is dealing with focus buyers, they're going to get Suffer here to help us.
Fortunately.
Help us find the right
Absolutely.
property.
I've heard you're 22 and you already have three properties of your own. What's it been like being born just around property?
Um, well, I'll say this. I'm definitely not a Nepo baby. We've sort of had to build ourselves from the ground up multiple times since my childhood. So I think it's part on an education on a property level, but also right place, right time, but also having the knowledge that what you need to be when the right place, right time comes. So I got my first property, 30 days after graduating year 12. So I got it at the end of 2020, settled on it on like the 29th of December, something like that. So I graduated during that COVID year. So it meant that I was working full time from home anyways. So I had all the serviceability I needed, but also it meant that when the government was scared and they were throwing out grants left, right, and center, I was first in line. I said, yes, please. So my first owner's property, it was $27,000 deposit, and I got a $25,000 deposit from the government, as well as another $10,000 grant, as well as another $2,500 grant, and then first home owners as well, covering the stamp duty. So by
And
the
the
time
mortgage insurance.
and no LMI either. So that was a house and land package, and by the time that was built, I had $150,000 equity in that property. And then from there onwards, it's just been not easy, but obviously that set me up, and then I didn't need to do anything. So I think a big part of what mum wants to teach people is, when you are an 18-year-old kid, don't get your parents to help you buy your first car and get a $25,000 loan and getting a Hyundai i30, because a $25,000 loan, a Hyundai i30 is stupid if you can get a house for the same price. So I think it's a mentality shift,
Uh,
which is, you don't need to have that brand new car right now. Wait 2 years, because in 2 years' time you'll have $100,000 equity where you can buy that car. But also now, if you buy your first property at 18, 19, 20, while you don't have any expenses, every other property is not free, but you're just pulling out equity to buy the next one. So it's a big shift. So I think our main clientele is a lot of, people in their mid 30s, 40s trying to buy their first house, and they're like, "Yep, let's help you, but also let's set yourself up so that way then your kids aren't going to make the same mistakes that you made and rent for 20 years, because now it's, my generation. Like I'm thinking I want to move out down Bundoora way in the next 6 months. I'm not going to be able to rent. There's no one's going to want to give me a rental, and if I am, we're looking at anywhere from $550 a week to more for Bundoora,
So
which
therefore,
is a
let's
joke.
sell another
So
property and buy.
I'm probably just going to sell one of them and then buy property down there, and start looking at something that's, really positively geared. So that way, then when I do live there for 2 years, when I come out of it, I'm either going to be having a nice positively geared property, or two, I've built some equity in there.
And
And
I think that's the mindset that you were talking about, where it's not about it, your circumstances always change in life, and we have no idea what your circumstances need to be or are going to be. Whereas Suffle's with the most beautiful girl, Talia, and they've been together for a while now, and she's going to now be studying down in Bandura for her master's. So when we bought his first property in Clyde North, which is not far from here, and then his second property was in Dandenong. Second was in Corio, Norlane. But that was set up to be an investment property that we're going to one day subdivide and put stuff on. But when you're buying those things 2 years ago, there was no idea
I was moving to Bandura.
to Bandura. That's not somewhere that we would have
I'd
thought.
much rather stay southeast or close to the beach. I don't want to move to Bandura.
So circumstances change in life, and by having that security of property behind you, you can make those kind of life choices, you know. And
but also, it's I think a big thing is that there's a big inexperience with buyers advocates, especially across this country, because a lot of people, not to diss on the Ben Handler course, but a lot of people have done a 6 weeks Ben Handler course and they think they know what they're talking about. The right property is not the right property for everyone. Everyone's circumstances is very different. So right now, our current client, we're looking down in Frankston, and it's two teachers that are both nearly pushing 50, and they want to buy a property together. And we're like, yeah, let's do it. And they were all set and ready to go to an auction 2 days after we met them on the Sunday to buy a property. And then we had a look at their finances, and we're like, yeah, you need to wait 6 months. Please don't. You're going to lose your deposit because I guarantee you're not getting a loan. I know this broker has told you, yeah, you'll be fine, but you're not. So I think trusting someone with experience is far more important than trusting someone with charisma. But also someone that's advertising a property to 7 people doesn't know what they're talking about, because you get 2 people in the room, it's very hard for them to want the same property, let alone 7. So yeah,
you get a lot of those buyers agents that have their lists, and then they'll just do a bulk email out to all of their buyers. Hey, look at this investment property. This is good because it stacks up because XYZ. Every single buyer is individual, and everybody's circumstances are totally individual. As I said before, do you want a property that's going to be high in growth? Or is it going to be a property that's going to be positively geared as you head into retirement? So depending on your age,
depending on your tax situation,
and the tax situation,
a good accountant is so important, because we might actually want to buy a property that's a terrible investment on that it's negatively geared because it's offsetting against your tax.
But we know that there's a train station going to be built there in the next 10 years. So therefore, as soon as that train station's built, it's going to double, triple in value. So therefore, that would be a better investment, because you're on a high tax bracket right now. So therefore, having a negatively geared property is not a big deal, because we know that the high growth, so by the time then you're heading towards retirement, you're going to be able to sell that for a lot more money.
Also worrying about capital gains, because then, you're heading into retirement. Let's buy the property that you're going to move into. So that way, when we do end up selling it, it's not going to have to pay capital gains tax because you lived in there in the year before you sold it.
So there's so much to. I'm sorry, I don't know if I just brought Sufle in last.
I just walked into the.
That's all right. I am just so impressed. First of all, the mother-son dynamic, and second of all, just Sufle being 22. I'll tell you something. When I was 22, I did not even know how to write my own name. But just listening to how you're talking and the conversation that we were just having around here, kudos to you, Mom. Kudos to you, Safil. I'm just wondering what it's like to have dinner with you guys and just sit there and listen. What is it like? Are you talking property, or are you talking?
Pretty painful, to be honest.
Well, I mean, the thing is, topics can range in absolutely any area, and Suffol's a bit of an encyclopedia. So even this morning I said to him when he woke up, I said, oh honey, somewhere along the line today, because I've just been to the gym, so I've started an 8-week challenge, so I need to figure out how to calorie out, and at my age I've got no clue. I know there's apps and stuff that you do it, so I said to him, honey, today later on, can you please go through the kitchen with me and give me an idea of how many calories are in everything in our kitchen?
I think a big problem is, I think Mum's a pure candidate of this mental diagnosis called alexithymia. It's essentially sort of based off sharks and how if a shark stops, it'll drown. Sharks have to keep moving forward. You have to keep doing something. Mum's never sitting still. There's always seven different things going on, which isn't a bad thing if you can cope with it. And I know a lot of people who try to juggle all these things, they can't. Whereas mum's been doing that since she was two. Helping in the family, helping raise the little sisters, and then business, business, business. So,
And then also the community work that we do. I
so
haven't
mum,
even talked to you about
mum,
community work that we do.
mum last year in like what September decided, hey, I'm going to run for local council. I'm like, the election's in like 4 weeks. Yeah, why not? And then within a month, she'd already had offers from the Labour, Liberals, Independents, One Nation saying, "Yeah, come join us for the state election next year." So there's a lot of things going on. So our conversations topics is anywhere from politics to finance to local community to religion to cricket. Talking
But
about
I noticed something, Phil. I noticed something, and thank you so much for giving me that insight because what I'm starting to pin together is obviously mom really loves people. All right. So if you really look at the way her trajectory from real estate, that has a lot to do with people. Then Japan teaching English, that's also got to do with people. And now working with finances and things of that nature, that's also to do with people and their well-being and things of that nature. Being the only female in sales, that's also a people thing. The cultural relatability that she produces and brings to the table, so you can
not
only imagine
not
that for
true,
somebody
but
who
I can say with confidence, being her son and having to deal with this for the last however many years, you have no idea. Like mum does so much cultural work and things like that she doesn't
This,
talk about because
yeah.
it's our religion is Sikhism, and we're not high practicing Sikhs. We're not going to the temple every Sunday, but when mum has a free Sunday and we're not doing work, she goes down to the temple and helps cook. But a big part of that religion is seva, which essentially means doing something for others. So
mm,
I would say 40 to 50% of our business is helping single mothers because mum closely relates to that. I would say 30 to 40% of her time is helping local communities. So between writing her books, which are meant to go into Victorian schools in the next couple of weeks,
Yeah.
to going to the local church, the Islander church, and becoming close friends with the priest there. And now all of a sudden, we've got our investment properties all being rented out to the youths that need a place to stay because mum's decided that that's what she wants to do. And it's like, well, hey, it's probably not a great financial decision. Oh, we're in the position that we can make a slightly silly financial decision if we can help people. So mum does a painful amount of that work, to the point
that's
where
I just yeah, that's what I noticed. Just obviously I've just been talking to her in the last 30 minutes, right? But it's all people centric. Some people are very computer, some people are very numbers driven, and I haven't heard numbers at all,
But
right?
him, and I
Or
guess, yeah, and I guess that's where we work really well together because he's the rock that just kind of pulls me back and keeps me grounded.
I have Asperger's and ADHD, so I wanted to be a racing car driver, and then I decided that's not going to happen. So I said I'll be an F1 engineer. So I finished high school with a full ride scholarship to go to Oxford to do motorsport engineering. Because of COVID, I couldn't get a visa to bloody leave the country, which was annoying.
mm,
But I've pretty quickly decided that F1's my love, my life, but it can be my joy outside of work. And working with mum is one, a very better financial decision because working in F1 is a terrible choice. But two, it means that I can, when I am watching the F1, I can enjoy it rather than working for it. So
Well,
I'm very
he
numbers
said to
based,
me, I
very
think it was last year, and he
analytical,
said rather than
emotional.
being in the paddocks, or is that what you call it,
Yeah, in the
and
paddock.
working, I might as well be in the corporate box enjoying it. So I need to make sure I've got enough money so I can follow the circuit and be in corporate boxes all around the
That's
world
my
watching
retirement
it.
plan. When I'm 50, 60 years old, I want to have enough money that I can spend $100,000 a year just going to the races. Because at the moment, I'm not in the position to spend $10,000 to go to the OzGP in a couple of weeks. But I want to be there in a few years. That's sort of my my goal.
Absolutely. And I love those sort of goals and goal setting, because so many families end up just arriving at a destination they never scheduled themselves to be at. And it's now becoming generational, in as much as the parents fail to do anything financially, or they've made bad decisions in property, and then they just pass that on to the kids, and nobody actually teaches them and things of that nature. But obviously, let's just relate it to the average and everyday sort of Australian. I mean, the property market is very daunting for a lot of people. What are the sort of common misconceptions that you encounter amongst people that are venturing into this for the very first time, and how are you guys addressing these?
I would say that there's a lot. I mean, we've got examples like my old math teacher in high school who is very adamant that he wants to, when he dies, take all his money with him. He doesn't need to leave kids, and because he had to work from the ground up. So why shouldn't his kids have to do the same? And I think it's changing that shift to, wanting to actually help set your kids up. But then the property market, one thing I've heard from my dad my whole life is that properties, assets lose value. What does increase in value is land. And that is so true. But there's a very big misunderstanding in that statement. It's usable land. Having, an acre in Narrowone North, just under the power lines, where they've very clearly said, local council has said, we will not allow you to subdivide it till at minimum 2032. It's probably not a good idea because that asset's not increasing in value. Yes, it's great that you've got that land, but when they do decide that they're going to start allowing it to be subdivided, they're not going to decide it overnight. They're going to say it's going to be in a couple of years' time. So return on investment, only invest in there in 5 years. You don't need to invest in it now. Buy usable land. So land that also someone else has done the due diligence and the hard work. So if you have precedence and the house next door has been subdivided and split into three properties, like that one just there, or the other properties just down the road, which have now got 4 units on an 800-meter square block. If you let them do the hard work of doing that, when you're then ready to develop, you just go to council with a very simple architectural drawing, and it's there, it's done, and you don't even have to build it. You can just sell it with plans and permits. But getting those plans and permits is very difficult if you're the first person to do it. So it's also going into Emerald and buying land over there where you're not allowed to cut down one of the trees. The trees can only be cut if the SES cut them or if it's already fallen down onto your property. So buying land is not important. It's buying usable land, but then also buying infrastructure. So the northwestern suburbs of Victoria at the moment, northeastern suburbs even, they're really good investments to everyone. And that's what they've been saying for the last 4 or 5 years, except they've had no growth. They've had no rental demand. They've had nothing. And the reason for it is because if you want to live only half an hour away from the city, yes, you can afford here. However, you can't catch the train because there isn't a train line. If you want to go to the hospital, you have to drive into the city to go to the hospital. Yes, we've got our Coles and our Woolworths. Yes, we've got our local schools and our footy pitches. However, the important infrastructure isn't built yet. And that's fine. It is going to get built into the future. But return on investment, invest where the infrastructure is now. And the moment they start building those train stations, you can just look at the getting rid of level crossings and how they do it. It takes 20 years for them to do anything. So there's no point investing until they've already at least started doing it. Whereas if you're waiting to them to, they haven't even started, it's going to take a long time for the infrastructure to come there. So buying in those northwestern suburbs isn't a bad idea, but be realistic about it.
But then at the same time, in saying that, depending on people's budgets, we had a couple that came to us that really wanted to buy an investment property in about 2 years ago, and we found them a 2-bedroom apartment in Janelle.
Oh, okay.
We found them a little apartment in Dandenong, and it's not the nicest of apartments. Don't get me wrong, it's nothing flash, but it was only $270,000. But this $270,000 brings in $440 a week in rent. You can buy the same thing. You can have to spend $450
to get that,
$450,000 to get the same return on investment. Okay, that $270,000 property that we bought 2 years ago is only now valued at
300.
300,000. It's not growth. It's not got a huge growth in that 2 years, but
That $450 is helping your serviceability to buy the next property. So you got to look at it as a portfolio. So
yeah,
you're not buying this property to help you with the equity to buy the next. This isn't going to help you with your deposit. But this personal client, they are two parents, two kids,
three.
3 kids now. They don't have any serviceability. Even if they had $100,000 in the bank with a deposit, their serviceability is terrible because the banks look at it as your current expenses. Yes, they don't meet the current expenses that the bank goes, but they go off their minimum expenses. As a family of 5, your expenses are absolutely terrible. You can't get the serviceability. So trying to help them with their serviceability, so that way in the future, when they do want to buy their next investment property that's going to increase in equity, we can then start doing that because now they've got an extra $150 a week coming in.
After their loans and all that are paid, there's an extra $150. So it actually has increased their serviceability. People don't see that, and people don't understand that. And again, a buyer's agent isn't going to understand that, nor is a mortgage broker going to see the
You need to have the combination.
You're going to have that combination, and I guess that's where we come in, and we have that. I'm not trying to sell us. So that wasn't the
No,
point.
absolutely, and I appreciate that because what you guys are presenting obviously is so much different to what everybody else has presented in the
Very
marketplace there.
holistic
All right,
approach to it.
because there's a difference between an ordinary property and an investment grade property, and you guys go into the nitty gritty of it all and things of that nature. But for us to just have some sort of closure to all of this, when people are sort of maybe at their wits end, what sort of people do you want to reach out to you to start working with you, and what sort of services would you be
I'd also
providing?
say it doesn't even have to be an investment property. I think it's also a mentality shift on the owner occupied.
Which is what I was talking about this place and what I did with it.
So having that owner occupied property, you're living in it. There's so many people that go into an open house and go, "Oh, I can't see myself living in here. This is wrong. This is wrong.
I've
This
already
is wrong."
talked about all of that earlier. You missed
It's
that, but
that
just
owner
the
occupied. It's
cosmetic.
also it's the mentality shift of having someone who's not invested in this property. So having doesn't have
Emotional
to be
buy.
us, but having someone who has nothing to do with the property. It shouldn't be a friend. It shouldn't be a family member. It should be an absolute random on the street that's definitely not going to live in that property with you. If you have them walk through the property with you, they can tell you off and tell you, "Hey, by the way, you're too emotional into this. You can see your kids growing up playing on that playground in the backyard. But I can tell you right now that that playground costs $200 from Bunnings, and when they move out, they're taking the little playground with them.
Yeah.
Anyone can buy that little $200 playset."
And that's where that whole staging of properties. I had clients not buy a property because one of the rooms were painted blue and one of the rooms were painted pink. And I'm saying to them, you realize this is a $150 can of paint from Bunnings that will fix it. But that was the only thing wrong with this property were the colors of the paints in the property. And they don't buy the property because of that. It's just mind-blowing at how...
But I think it's from experience. We were going to buy a property in Narre when this is 10 years ago, and we loved it. This property was gorgeous. I really wanted to live there. Other than the fact that their elevation change was shocking, it was a gorgeous property. And we decided that we didn't want to buy it because it was very old American diner-esque. It had this candy cane style light in the living room that was like a barbershop almost in the living room.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it just threw Mum off. And she was like, "I don't like this place."
No, I just didn't like the place.
And then in hindsight, in a couple of weeks later, it was like, "Wait, what am I talking about? That was a light." Like I think there's also, we've made the mistakes and we've got the understanding because experience.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that money can't really buy. So Mum's worked in real estate, finance, buyers advocacy, legislation, teaching. It's the different avenues that I think is really important. And yet again, not to sell ourselves, but if you are going to work with someone, you're going to give them your hard-earned cash. Just don't go with someone that has no idea what they're talking about, because anyone can spit the game.
Yeah. It's about talking. Yeah, a lot of people taught that talk, and they spend so much money in advertising and marketing, and they'd be sitting here presented well with a business suit on and stuff like that, which
Or
I didn't actually realize it
even
was being
mistakes that
recorded.
we've had in the past where someone will answer their Zoom call sitting on their boat in a yacht in the Bondi area. They're in Mossman on their yacht to answer their business call, and we're like, oh wow, this is someone to respect who we want to work with. And then it's realizing after 6 months of working with them, this guy's all show. He's an absolute
It's
tosser.
talk, and they've got their money coming in from overseas from a hotel that the parents invested in 100 years ago, as opposed to actually hands on the ground
Knowing
working
what
and
they're doing,
knowing
they
what they're
have no
doing.
idea. So
Some critical questions if people are engaging in a buyer's agency. How long have you been working in real estate? What's your knowledge of finances, serviceability?
how much do you look into current legislation and the legislation changes?
Yeah,
What is your knowledge on grants? Don't send me off to a mortgage broker to go and find it out. I want to know what you know
yeah.
because
And then
everyone will say
also,
go speak to a broker.
yeah,
And
and
it's
then
no.
also what is the government doing in this area? How much money are they spending on infrastructure in this area? What's actually in the plans and what is proposed at this stage? Those are the sorts of questions that agents should know on the ground. So as far
I would
as
say 30% of my week is literally just reading government documents because they're all public, but they don't send them out to you onto your email. You have
yeah,
to find them
yeah.
and you have to see what they're doing. I
Mm.
spend
And the
a lot of time
average the average
focused.
Australian is just sitting scrolling on TikTok and they will never get around to understanding all of that stuff. And I viscerally believe that's the reason why people need to get in touch with you. Now, what would be the best way that people can start their journey with you guys? Where would they go on the internet?
Just give me a call. It's Jamel, Jamel at focusbuyers.com.au, or they can give me a call 04 262 54647. If you put in Jamel Kaur Singh into your Facebook and Instagram and all that sort of stuff, you will find me. LinkedIn, I'm all there. But
I'm there
just get
too.
in touch. I'm sure you can put some details up somewhere. Uh, and even if they just want a conversation, it doesn't cost anything to have a conversation and talk. We're more than happy to
Especially
do
if
that.
if you are a 21-year-old with drive, with passion, I can say from experience, my mother will adopt you and take you on. All of my friends, anyone we meet, I would say a big part of our work is helping people who need the help, but also people who want to do something, people who want to change, who don't want to make, you know, the stupid decisions. So, her local BMI group on a Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. There's a kid in there who washes windows and mum absolutely adores him and just wants to do anything she can. We're in it to make money, but we're also in it to help people. And the person that's on, CEO salary that has 70 investments, they're not gonna need the help, but also they don't want help from people like us. We like helping your local Aussie kid or your local Aussie mum, single mother,
Or
especially, or
dad,
family even.
widowers
Mum,
and all that
mum,
sort of
mum
stuff
really
as well.
likes to help people. So I will say, if you, not to be rude again, if you are a bit of a charity case, mum will end up helping you. And if you're worried about like, anything like that, just talk because mum's in the car for 2 hours a day. She needs to be talking to someone during that drive. Might as well, give her something to do.
And so that's the whole thing with me is I think it's really important for people to realize that this is a profession, just like any other profession, and people expect to get paid. If you're wanting a phone call and just wanting an ear, give me a yell. I'm more than happy to do that. But a lot of people think that they can find what we find on real estate without having to pay for it. Yeah, we might find properties on realestate.com, but what they don't realize is that the agent for that property that I've just sent you has given me a call in the morning and said, Jamil, the property's been on the market for 2 months and the vendor's going to drop the price by 20K. They're now desperate to sell, or the banks are closing in on them. If you get in an offer ASAP, I'm going to be able to close this deal. But that's because of the relationship that I've been building with real estate
But
agents for
also
30 years.
paying someone who knows what they're talking about $5,000 to save you $40,000 in your negotiation. Like, I think that's another undervalued thing that I stick out of, but mum won't say, which is that mum taught a lot of these people real estate back at RMIT and Homestone. So mum knows a lot of these people. So from a
It's not just
negotiating
know
power,
the people, but it's also the negotiating skills because I used to teach them how to do that. So I can reverse tailor that to make sure that it's done the right way. But just anybody needs help, give me a call. And I'm more than happy to come on if you've got specific, if you get questions thrown at you in your chats and stuff like that, and you want to have another session either with me or him or both of us, we're more than happy to come on and just give tips and advice on financial literacy. You know, that's the most important thing for me is for people to realize the difference between assets and liabilities and how they can build that to make a better future. Goal setting is so important, and financial goal setting, just to have a goalpost to aim for makes it so much easier to kick the ball, you know.
also,
Absolutely. Now, I got to tell you guys, when I jumped onto this podcast today, I was just going to talk about agents and advocacy and things of that nature. But by the end of it all, there was a lesson in health, wealth, and relationships. And you guys managed to cover it all up, which is very comprehensive in what we are all seeking as humans. I mean, the health, you did mention you started your journey, and you're now counting calories, something that a few people would want to know a little bit more about. Wealth, you basically took us through the whole journey of buying, selling, and being able to, do property transactions. And relationships, just the way you guys are bouncing off of each other, it's just
Can I
something.
say that in 30 years of doing real estate, the biggest cause I have seen marriage and family breakdowns you would not believe. But the biggest cause, or the single most biggest cause of family breakdowns at the end of the day, comes down to money. The
Mm,
nagging about everything else is because of money. The void,
absolutely.
the extra hours. Oh, if we spend an extra $10,000, oh, that just means I need to take on an extra shift. And then the family breaks down because of that. It all boils down to financial well-being. And
also when
to
people
not
are leaving assets.
don't live outside your means, and don't worry about the Joneses next door and what they're doing and how they're buying the next car and all that sort of stuff. Live within your means. It is more important. And so many people in hindsight say to me, "Oh, Jamel, we shouldn't have bought that because now that's what's caused the marriage to break down." Or
Absolutely, absolutely. I really, really thank you for sharing your insights. And Sufil, thank you so much for jumping in on this call. You really gave us a whole different dynamic to the conversation that we were gonna have. I mean, your life story and your experience, the both of you are so valuable for anyone who's looking to navigate the complexities of the property market or embark on their own entrepreneurial journey. So I'll be putting in all those details for people to get in touch with you so that they too can get started on their journey. Now, to the people that are listening right now, thank you so much. And I think if you found this episode as enlightening as I myself did, I actually encourage you to share this with somebody who could actually benefit from Jamel's story and expertise. And by so doing, you are not only helping them gain value and insights about wealth building or relationships, but you're also supporting the growth of your own community. Until next time, bye for now.